when I first came, I didn't even think about, well, I just think turn on the pipe and I get water. Well, not quite. So, so when I first bought my house, the first thing I did, the water was turned off when I actually went through the process of buying. So I didn't even give it a second thought. So after I moved in, I decided, all right, the first thing I'm going to do is some laundry. And when the water came into the machine, it smelled horrible. And I go, what is the smell? Only to find out that my well had iron bacteria and sulfur bacteria. I didn't know what that was. So in investigating, I ended up calling a water guy who came from Toronto, and he told me all the things that was wrong with my water. Apparently, normally, people would get 5, 7, 10, 15 gallons of water per minute. My well was only giving me 2.5 gallons per minute, and that was really low. Are you aware of the water aquifer underground? Do you know what that is? There's like a river system underneath. Yeah, the aquifer. But it's not equal everywhere. So on my street, I came to find out that on one side of the street, there's water issues. On the opposite side, they were getting like 10, 15 gallons a minute. My house was 2.5. So it's like, I don't know if you call it like a stream underneath the aquifer, and, little trickles from my side into the stream. So I tapped into one of the veins. So the smell now, my water guy had to bring, he brought the filtering system. He had charcoal filter and different type of filter to clean it, and then he has the UV lighting and then salt to clean the water. And so at the end, I would have, my water is pretty good, but I have to manage my water. And every so often, he have to shock the well. How do you shock the well? You pour bleach into the well to kill all the biological life form that's in there. And then you turn on the water and let it run until all the bleach is out, and that's shocking the well. There's 2 types of wells. There's a drill well, which you have a pipe, 6-inch diameter, that goes down into the ground. My well is 60 feet down. But some well, if you're on a hill, it could go as far as 300 feet down. Mine is only 60. There's also the dug well. If the water table is high enough, you can just dig down and you will meet water. But if the water table is not that high, you probably need a drill well. And for me, it's 60 feet down. So the iron and sulfur bacteria, you might find a lot of that, but some places don't really have that issue. But you're fortunate when you don't have that issue, because you don't have to worry about cleaning the well. I know another friend who moved here. She have water problems, and I guess there's a lot of salt in her water that makes it unusable. So how do you do that? How do you fix that? Well, you can get a filter systems to try and clean it, or try to do a new well. I think she did try to do a new well, but I don't think it solved her problem. So some people have to truck water in, especially like in the summertime when it's hot and dry. You have to bring water in. So I think the water trucks will come and fill up your well. I don't know how much gallons that they can put in, so that you can have water over the summer. A holding tank. Okay, a holding tank. You technically don't have that problem during the winter. So in the winter, we do need a lot of snow, because that provides water for the summertime. If we don't have a lot of snow like this past winter, then as it comes to the very hot season, the water table gets lower. So, um, so that's it. We do need the snow during the winter. Um, the wells, in the city, when you turn on your pipe, it's managed by the government, right? They sense water, they put chlorine, they do, keep your water clean for you. Well, we know that chlorine is bad, right? Too much chlorine makes the water very hard. Well, in the country, the well water doesn't have chlorine, so we are dependent on the filtering system. We're dependent on salt. We're dependent on the UV light to clean your water. And so you now have to manage the water yourself. So the public health, they provide little bottles that you can fill it up and take it to them, and for free, they will test the water in your well and tell you what is in it. We have to be careful of E. coli, because that's dangerous. But like I said, you might find iron bacteria or sulfur bacteria in the well. If the report comes back with that, then you have to shock it to clean it. To shock it, you take the cap for a drill well. You take the cap off, and you pour bleach down into maybe a half a bottle of bleach, and you let it stay for a bit, and then after you turn on the pipe and let all the bleach filter out, then you have a tester. You can test it to make sure it doesn't smell like bleach, or that there's no bleach left in it. It's shocking the well. So in the well, there is a pump system, it's a long cylinder pump that it pumps water up, and it can pump it pumps it into your house. So once in a while that can fail, and if it fails, you have to have someone to replace that pump. Yes.
You mentioned that when you bought your house, it had all of that. Is it only a smell that you were able to identify that you had that problem, or did the water look different?
It was a very strong smell that I'm not used to, and that right away I figure, okay, this is not normal. I'm not used to this. I don't want to smell sulfur in my water. Sometimes the water, the color might be have a rust color, which is, you know that it's yeah, in the tank. Yes. Yes, you might see, and a ring. You might see a ring around the tank, and sometimes it might even be a little bit slimy. So, I mean, it's not going to kill you, but who wants that in their water? So some people get a filter system, like Culligan, to help clean the water before it goes to your faucet. Mm-hmm. That's iron bacteria. Yes. Yes?
To test your water, I've always been afraid that they'll say, oh, it's too far gone, we condemn it, you have to drill a new well. I'm very suspicious of people trying to make money. Is that possible?
So like this lady, when she came, she thought, the well is not very good, and so she will just work with it and get it cleaned or whatever. But she found out, she's been there, a couple years now, and she still have a water issue. She did try to dig a new well, and she still have that same problem.
There are two main types of contamination. One is bacteria, which Patricia has already alluded to, and the other one is the rust and the sulfur and everything. So the health unit are going to test for the bacteria, the E. coli, which can be really, really dangerous. And it usually comes from runoff from a farm, from animal feces getting into your water system. I'm not sure who I'm talking to. Who asked the question? So the health unit can tell you that you're not allowed to use your water until you deal with that E. coli because of the health risk. But they are not interested in the fact that it doesn't smell nice. That's your problem. So they're not going to look at the rust and the sulfur and that aspect of it. But if it's got significant bacteria or coliforms, which are what come from like vegetation, and you have to get quite high before they consider that to be dangerous, but the health unit can put a stop on you using your well for those reasons. So then it's up to you whether you test it or not, and whether you take that risk.
Oh, and the other thing too, when you're selling your property, you have to compatible, and so that a report that says your water is. Mhm. With the health unit, well, it depends how bad it is. You can your a limit how often you can check your water through them. Yes, so difference country is that you have to manage your water, and government is there to assist you. The health unit, so the water, get to them, put your information on it, and they will test it for you. Hmm. Yes, there's no limit. So again, you have to manage your own water and make sure that it is drinkable. Eat, yeah. So you can try shocking it, like I said, and you can get like the filters. You know, like for me, so I have the iron and sulfur bacteria. So I get the filters in the house that cleans the water before it goes to my faucet. So for me, I use hydrogen peroxide. So when the water comes into the holding tank, because remember I said I only have 2.5 gallons per minute, right? So I have to have a holding tank in my basement, and as the water come in from the well, it pumps in hydrogen peroxide into the holding tanks. It kills the biological things that comes there, and then I have four other smaller filter systems, charcoal filter and UV light and salt, and so four systems that take the hydrogen peroxide out of the water. So by the time it gets to my faucet, it's almost like rainwater. So it's like you're going to bathe and you feel like you can't get the soap off because the water has become very soft. Yes. Uh-huh. Okay. So I have a water guy that comes to my house at least once a year to change all my filters, and he also brings me a bottle of hydrogen peroxide. It's about this tall, and it's It's $340, and it can last me up to 6 months, depending how often I do laundry and you know use the water. So it cleans it, and you know. Do you remember years ago in Washington they had an E. coli outbreak, and many people got really sick. So when I came here, I thought about that, and I said to him, I don't know how to manage a well, so help me, give me the best that you have, not knowing what I was asking for. But so it was very costly for me because I didn't know any better. But today I'm very happy with it. The only thing is, every 6 months or so, I have to buy hydrogen peroxide to clean, make sure that there is no biological that's going through my system. So yeah, so when you come, don't we shouldn't be afraid, because God told us to come to the country and He will teach us what we need to do and how to manage our water system. So I think my time's up. Any more questions? Yes, more.
I had a well dug once, and I don't know what piece, it was under 100. He said, I hit a little bit of water, but there was only some. And then he went down to 230. And then I had a friend tell me, he took me for a ride.
Wow.
Is that true, or?
I would say that because when my well is 200 feet, and I remember when he said to us, I've got 4 gallons a minute, right? At about, let's say 80 feet. And he kept going down, but we watched that pressure. So it's kind of hard to tell whether it's or not. Because it could be that we found 2 gallons a minute, and then at 200 feet I end up getting 17 gallons a minute. So, you know what I mean? It's kind of hard, you know?
Hmm.
And that too, not even here, it could be even your flat, as she was saying, because on my street, there are 2 brothers living at the end. One live on the left, one live on the right. The one living on the right, his well is about 400 feet. And the other one living on the left, he's about 45.
Yes. 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 And the other thing to consider as well, some wells are seasonal, meaning it only has water in the spring. When the snow runoff and everything, it will be full, because there's 2 wells on my property. The first well they dug, I think they did it in the springtime when there was lots of water underground. But as the summer months came on, it was dry. There was nothing coming out of it. So they had to dig another well, and fortunately, they could get 2.5. Meanwhile, across the street from me, they're getting like 10 gallons per minute. So that's what I'm saying. The aquifer underground is not equal everywhere. So, yes. Yes, the deeper you go, the more money.
The pipes are like 25 feet long, and I think it's like 20 something dollars for 30 something dollars, like $27 per foot.
So you can look at anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000, depending on how deep.
I think it's gone up a lot now. I would say near
More?
between 10 and 20,000,
Oh,
depending on how deep.
between 10 and 20,000 to dig a well.
And that doesn't include well pump.
Oh yes, the well pump too. Well pumps can run anywhere from $1,600 to $2,000, depending on the quality of well pump. Yeah. True. Exactly. Really?
we'll just do Sheila and I'll start and then we'll do
Okay.
more questions after.
All right, Sheila. Yes. Yes. Very nice. Oh, yeah. One more.
Yeah.
Okay. So I also bought a manual, that you can stick it down into the casement and then use hand power to pump the water out.
But even that, static level, I think, can be more than 19 feet. Meaning, the height of the well water can be lower than 19 feet, right? So you probably won't get water from the well. You know what I mean? It doesn't go all the way down. There's a level where that's,
A static level.
yeah, 19 feet, I think.
Yep.
Bucket.
Right, right. Okay, we'll take more questions after. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Patricia. So I think that one of the messages that we have here is none of us are experts, but we all have lived experience on the subjects that we're talking about. And the point that you raised about no power, no water, as soon as a thunderstorm, the house that I lived in, I'm in town right now, hoping to get out to the country at some point, but right now I'm not. The house that I lived in, every time there was a thunderstorm or something, we thought the power might go out. We would fill some buckets with water, and then you just literally have to dump a bucket of water to flush the toilet and fill up water bottles for drinking and things like that. And I think the other thing that I was going to follow up with, what Patricia was saying about our friend who, in retrospect, the signs were there that she was going to come and do a talk, but unfortunately she couldn't be here. The signs, in retrospect, the signs were there, but like Sister Patricia has shared, she didn't know what she was looking for when she was buying her house. And so those signs went unnoticed, so rust around the taps, looking in the back of the toilet tank and seeing it's all rusty brown, or the scum or whatever, and seeing multiple filters and things like that. But when you're buying a house, this is definitely, as Patricia said, it's something that I don't know if it's actually illegal to sell a house that doesn't have potable water, but it's absolutely something that you can put into the conditions so that the sellers solve the problem rather than you being landed with a huge bill once you move into the property. Anyway, so those water and septic, I have a passion for, because I've been affected by it. I was brought up on a farm in England, as you can probably tell by my accent. I'm haven't lived in Canada all my life. And so I have a lot of lived experience on what water supply and waste removal means. So the house that I lived in, it was in Queensborough, which is about half an hour east of here. We had a dug well, but it was great. It was it served us well. I'm going to stick with septic. So I'm going to go to slide 1 or 2, I guess. So I don't know how well you can see this. If you can't see it, you might want to come closer. This is a diagram of how a septic system and a septic bed works. I'm going to come back to it later, but basically the waste comes from the house into the holding tank, which has a pipe that comes out of the middle of the holding tank, not the top, not the bottom, into another tank. And then it's got permeable pipes, perforated pipes that come out into what they describe as a percolation area, a drain area. I know it as a weeping bed. So you've got these pipes coming from the septic tank out into your front garden or the back garden or usually somewhere fairly close to the house. So we might come back to this, but that just gives you like a visual of the house, the tank, the second tank, and the weeping bed. So I'm just going to go the next slide. So this is just the explanation of what I've just said. The wastewater flows into the from the house, whether it's the shower, the toilet, whatever, including everything that is in that system. So everything you flush down the toilet, everything that goes down the sink, ends up in this first septic tank. A septic tank is connected to a property by a series of pipes. When a toilet, sink, shower, or other drain is used, the wastewater flows down the pipes and into the tank, taking everything with it. So the waste then settles and separates. So when the wastewater enters the septic tank, it settles into 3 layers. The solids go to the bottom. The oil and grease float, and the clarified liquid sits in the middle. The sludge settles to the bottom of the tank, while oils and grease float to the top, which is what I've just said, forming a scum layer. So that's really important. So the more oil and grease you put down your sink, the more it's going to form that scum on top, and it's going to prevent the bacteria from working. So we'll come back to that later. So you've got 3 layers: oil and grease, liquid and solids. Bacteria breaks down the solids. So all these solids that are biodegradable, that are sitting on the bottom of the septic tank, the beneficial bacteria in the septic tank's environment break down the organic solids in the sludge and the scum layers. This biological process partially treats the wastewater, reducing its organic content. So think of all your waste solids that are biodegradable. It does need air to do that. So as I say, the thicker and harder that scum is that is created on the top, the harder the bacteria is going to be working. So effluent is clarified and separated. So as new wastewater flows in to the septic tank, the treated effluent from the middle layer is drained into the drain field. So do you remember I said that pipe in the main tank is in the middle. It's not on the top, it's not in the bottom, it's in the middle. So as more water flows into that septic tank, it kind of creates a siphon, and water, the effluent will start coming out and go into the weeping bed. The drained area is also called a drain field, a leach field, absorption field, or a weeping bed. And the drain field is made up of a network of perforated pipes or chambers buried in the soil. And one, I think I come on to this later, but one indication of a healthy septic system is when you look out on your front lawn when you haven't mown the grass for maybe a week or something, and you have all of that lush grass that's growing, and you can actually see the pipes coming. You can see the direction of the weeping bed, the pipes that come out, because it's being fed the organic material that's coming out of the weeping bed. So effluent filters through the soil. So this is the last stage. The effluent that enters the drain field, the weeping bed, is further treated as it seeps through the soil. And the soil acts as a natural filter, removing any remaining impurities and pathogens from the effluent as it moves through the ground. So, as I say, you'll see that the lush grass, and it's just like, getting a bag of sheep manure or cow manure, or if you've got friends who have horses or something, that's the manure that you want to help your garden grow. Well, this is doing it through human waste, and you get the goodness that is in that without the nasty bacteria, because that's already been dealt with. So it prevents contaminating. Did we do this one? Effluent finishes treatment and disposal. Finally, the soil's natural processes filter and remove impurities, making it safe to return to the groundwater or surface water. So this part is really important, that the water, the effluent and the what's coming out into your weeping bed is not going to contaminate the water source that's nearby. So it's preventing it from accumulating and contaminating the groundwater. So that's the way a healthy septic system works. So now we're going to go on to maintaining a healthy septic tank. So just as Sister Patricia was telling you that you need to look after your well, you need to look after your septic tank to prevent a lot of cost. There's not a lot of cost in the maintenance. There's a lot of cost in dealing with problems. We had a question. It's a natural trickle. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to go through, and then if you've got questions, I may be answering them. So I'm going to keep going, and then we can take questions at the end if that's okay. Hold that thought. So prevention is better than cure with all things. Some of you were at the small engine repair this morning. Same thing. Prevention, doing a little bit of maintenance here and there is better than having to deal with a breakdown. Your choice of cleaning products is absolutely crucial in your house. So remember I said about the bacteria that's needed to break down the waste in your septic tank. Guess what happens if you throw a load of bleach down, and even if you shock your well, and all that water with the chlorine bleach in it is flowing through your system, where is it going to go? It goes into your septic tank. Okay, so that's a good thing to shock the well. It's not a good thing for your septic tank. So we'll come on to that in a second. So the cleaning products that you use, choose something. If you have an option that says it's septic friendly, choose natural products. Choose something that is not going to kill all of that bacteria that you need in your septic tank to break down those solids. Choice of toilet paper is also really crucial. You'll notice that in our outhouses here, it's very thin. Some of you might not like it, but it does break down really quickly. There, you can use 2-ply. That's no problem, but there's all the newer toilet papers that are, long and strong and thick and, feel good and all of these things. Some of them have got like microcapsules in them, almost like a moisturizer for when you're wiping. All of that goes into the septic tank, and toilet paper that, like the expensive stuff that is really thick and luxury toilet paper, does not break down nearly as easily as the thin stuff. So do your research and choose your toilet paper wisely. You can choose not to flush your toilet paper. And the house that we lived in Queensborough, we had it was a huge house, which was lovely, needed a lot doing to it, but that's another story. But there were 5 of us living there, 2 teenage girls, and we were getting through so much toilet paper. And we were thinking all of this is going into our septic tank. So we got a waste bin stayed in the bathroom, and we stopped flushing toilet paper. You can choose to flush the yellow and not the brown, or you can choose not to flush any toilet paper and to either put it in the garbage or burn it or whatever. But when we moved from that house, the guy that came to pump the septic, which is often something you have to do when you're trying to sell a house, he said he'd never seen such a clean septic. And when we told him that we never ever flush toilet paper, he said, you wouldn't believe the blockages and the contamination, especially the expensive toilet papers, the damage that they can do to a septic system. So choose your toilet paper wisely. Some people actually keep flushing of the toilet to a minimum as well, and use this little motto: if it's brown, flush it down. If it's yellow, let it mellow, especially if it's just you, maybe you and a spouse. And, it's just, a couple of people peeing a few times a day. Don't flush it all the time. Because every time you flush, you're adding water to the septic tank. And you can have too much water in a septic tank. If you do, 3 loads of laundry, all of that water from your laundry tub is going to go into that septic. So it can cause too much water to be flowing through and upset the biodynamics of the bacteria and the whole system. You have a quick question? We burnt it. Yeah. We were right out in the country, and it's just paper. So we burnt it. Okay, and I think this might be strict rules of this house regarding what is flushed. Now this is I cannot emphasize how important this is. It's so important that, you train your family, you train your kids, especially if you're moving to the country and they're used to getting rid of anything and everything by thinking they're just going to flush it down and it's going to go into the municipal, septic. Everything that you flush down goes into your septic tank, which you have to deal with. So your guests, your family, everybody needs to know that no wipes, no feminine hygiene products. Plastic is not going to break down. Anything that goes into that toilet that is not going to break down, you're going to have to pay to get it pumped out. And the more that goes down that shouldn't, the more often you're going to have to get it pumped. So strict rules of this house, and I know as Adventists we've sometimes got a long list for our children and our guests, but this has to be a priority. Pump the solids regularly. So what defines regularly? So what does pumping the solids mean? So sometimes once a year, sometimes once every 5 years. Depends on your septic tank. It depends if you see problems, if things are backing up in the toilet and things are not flowing the way they should, then you might consider getting your septic tank pumped. So you have to know where the 2 lids of those 2 holding tanks are. You have to dig them. They're usually maybe 6 inches below the surface, so really easy to find. And easy to dig. And then the septic guy comes with his great big truck and a great big pipe, and he puts it into the septic tank and pumps out everything, but including all of those solids that are not dissolving. And I would say that most people that I've spoken to do it every 3 years. Some people do it every year, some people every 5 years. I have to say the house that I lived in Queensborough, we did not get it pumped when we moved in. We did not pump it for the 8 years that we lived there. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we don't know when it was pumped before that. And when the guy came, we were like, what's he going to find? Because what he finds when he pumps your solids is going to tell you what the health of the whole septic system is like, and what the weeping bed is like. If those tiles are getting clogged up with either solids going out that shouldn't, being washed out by doing 5 loads of laundry in a day, or some of these things that we're going to come to. So pumping solids regularly, what defines regularly? Depends really on your situation. Protect the weeping bed. This is another really, really important thing. You shouldn't drive a vehicle over your weeping bed, because those perforated tiles, it's usually a clay tile, will collapse. So guess instead of having a place for the water, the effluent to flow, it's going to be crushed. So heavy trucks, anything like that, particularly the guy that comes to pump your septic, and they all know this, will not drive over your septic bed because it would damage it catastrophically. Trees, so my dad's pines. So my dad had 3 lovely pine trees planted. I don't know if he planted them or the person that was living with him did, right in front of the house, and they're now taller, twice as high as this tent. And guess where the roots are going? They're filtering into that weeping bed through the holes in the tile, breaking the tile apart, and basically wrecking the weeping bed. So that's another really important thing to look at, is not having trees planted or any big plants planted over or near your weeping bed. And it's amazing how far those tree roots can travel. So the use of a bacteria replacement, I mentioned this earlier. The school's out on whether or not you use a bacteria replacement or not. It's personal choice. Sometimes if you feel that the system is backing up and the toilets are not flushing as well as they might, then you might think of using a bacterial replacement. And for anybody that's got an RV, it's exactly the same as you would put into an RV holding tank to help speed up the process of those solids breaking down. And you just buy it at Home Hardware or Home Depot or whatever and put a scoop in once a month. It helps if you are using some cleaning products. If you're using an antibacterial dish soap, for example, it just helps to keep the bacteria levels at a premium in your holding tank by adding more bacteria to it. And then you don't have to worry quite as much, or if you haven't washed out all of the chlorine from shocking your well or something, it's just replacing it. And if for some reason you do throw some bleach down the toilet or whatever, this is an essential part. And if you have shocked your well and it's all gone into the into the septic tank, this is an essential part to do. I'm just going to check my time. So what happens if you don't have all of that space for a weeping bed? What happens if you're near a water source where the authorities, usually the conservation authority that covers that area, will not allow you to put in a septic bed? Mostly I'm talking about a new build in these circumstances. They have very strict rules on where you can put a septic bed. You can't just put it anywhere. It has to be a certain distance from your neighbors, because you don't want your effluent going onto a neighbor's property, so that has to be protected. The water source has to be protected. So if you don't have the space on your property to do it, what are you going to do? And what you have to do is use a holding tank. So literally everything that comes out of, just the same in an RV or whatever, everything that comes out of your house goes into your holding tank, and you have to get it pumped as regularly as you need to. If you've got a family of 5 using it, then it's going to need pumping regularly. If it's just 1 or 2 of you, then not so often. And cost, same with a well. How long's a piece of string really? If the well is easy and you hit water at 45 feet, it may only be 10,000. If you have to go to 200 or even 300 feet, it's going to cost you a lot more. If they don't hit water and they have to try again, it's going to be more expensive again. With a septic bed, a new one is around 20,000. And if you need repairs to a septic bed, and usually if you get a house inspection, the person that's doing the house inspection will make the homeowner dig up the septic and the best way of doing it is to get your home inspector to come at the same time as the guy that's coming to pump solids, and then you'll get two views on whether your septic system is healthy or not. But secondly, it just saves having to dig out the lids of the septic tank once and not twice. And I think that's all of my notes. Yeah, so that's Sally's version of septic tanks, lived experience. I've helped people buy and sell houses a few times and been involved with that process. So if Patricia wants to come back up, and we'll take questions on either the water or septic, if anybody has any. No questions? Oh, one question. I have no idea. Oh, you do? Oh, okay. So Caroline, which one? Caroline is saying they use baking yeast in the septic system instead of buying stuff from Home Hardware. So I didn't know that. I've learned something new.
So, regarding the septic system, I was told that once we go plant-based, reduce the amount of oil we consume. It's less oil going into your septic system, and the longer you would take to clean it. The less oil, the longer you can go. You could go 8 years. If you eat a lot of fried foods and consume a lot of oil, 3 years. So diet is important. I think the average for me, I have 3 bathrooms and I have 1,000 gallon. The weeping bed.
I think there is, I don't know what, the straight answer is I don't know, but from my experience of seeing different septic beds and everything, it is based on the size of the house, the size of the family. So I think all of these things are pretty standard. If you call and ask someone to come and put in a septic bed, I think that the parameters are quite similar, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look it up. Any other questions? Yes. So my answer to that is it's not something that I would want to be a part of. It's your personal choice. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. It's your own conscience. But I would be very wary because I don't want to invite anybody into my home or into my environment that is not of God. And so I would be wary, but it's your personal choice. Do you have any comment on that? The question was, there are people called water diviners or water witching, where they have a couple of sticks or a piece of metal or something where these people feel that they've been given special powers to detect water.
So when my neighbor was getting his well done, he was having some water issues, and they called for, what they call him, a witcher? A witcher. So I didn't know what a witcher was. And he said he needed 2 apple sticks. And he would walk with the apple sticks, and where there's water, the stick would point down. So I said, well, can anybody do that? And he says, well, maybe. So I got 2 apple sticks and nothing happened. So just to say, they have a spirit with them. And so, do you want to do that? The people who are digging the well, they can also find water. You don't need a witcher to find water for you. So,
And this comes back to the question that we had earlier, which was something along the lines of how do you know whether if you're going to get taken, you know, if that really is going to be something that you need to pay 20,000 rather than 10,000. Talk to people. If you move to an area, find out who the well drilling companies are that have been there forever through generations. I know that Hitchens pumps locally here, they're from Belleville. They've been around, I think, for 2 generations. They know their stuff. They'll come to your house. So what they told us was we had a dug well, which only gave us between 2 and 3 gallons per minute. But because it was a dug well, his advice was that it was going to be a great well. And I said, well, it's spring now. Of course it's going to be good. And he said, I can tell by looking at it and the level of the water on the stones on the side of the well that it's a good well. So that was his experience. He's been in the area for a very long time. He's not somebody that's just gone out and bought a drilling rig and is saying that he can drill wells. They have the knowledge. They don't want to start drilling and not find water. So they have a lot of knowledge about the area. And it's the same whether it's small engines or wells or septic. Ask your neighbors who they would use. Ask the real estate agent. You know, when you're looking at small engine repairs, who do your neighbors use? Word of mouth. Ask in your church. You know, who are they using? What is their reputation? Do your research. Any other questions? Okay, our job is done. If you do think of any questions later, then we would be delighted to answer them. Oh, one more question. That's where the well drilling people come in. Yeah, and it comes back to the point that our sister made at the back there. You know, you don't want to have your well in the dip of the field because all the water, all the runoff is going to come down into that aquifer. You know, it's things like that to look at. Is runoff going to affect what goes into the well? Because as much as the water's going to come from the aquifer below, if there's a new drill and a mechanism of that water getting down, then there could be some contamination if it's, you know, right where all of the runoff comes down in the dip of a field or something like that. Yes. So that's a great point. So talk to the neighbors, talk to, you know, people in the area, but don't always take their word for it, because as Patricia says, the people right across the road from her have really, really good water supply, and Patricia's not so much. So you'll only know once you actually get into drilling. And sometimes when somebody is severing property, it depends on the municipality. Sometimes they will insist that a well is already put onto the property before you're allowed to sever and sell a piece of your own property. So that's something to look out for. Maybe you can find a property that already has a well that's tried and tested on that property. Okay, one more question, then we're done. Say that again. Right. There, you don't pump a septic system. You do? Okay. So I didn't know that you could do that. I'm really interested to understand the logic of how that would work. I can understand how you could pump stuff from your house to your septic, but not necessarily into the weeping bed, because then you'd be forcing things out that might not be ready to go. Yeah. Right. Okay, so that's what my understanding is, that's what goes out naturally with the natural flow of water through a septic system. So it may be that your runoff is not a good enough angle for it to weep out on its own. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Okay. So I don't have experience of septic systems in Manitoba. Caroline does. UK and Ontario, yes. I've not heard of that. So an actual pumping septic out. So do your research. We've given you a lot of information on different ways that a septic tank works, that a weeping bed works, things to be aware of and mistakes not to make. And do your research on the types of septic tanks wherever you are. So we're going to finish there. So thank you very much to everybody. It is 4:05, and we have Matthew Preby, which is Pastor Preby's son, coming to do his talk here at 4:30, and the kids aged 5 to 12 will be in the other tent. So we'll look forward to you being back here at 4:30. See you in a bit.